Hello guys, welcome to my channel, and now we are going to read a new lesson, which is the necklace from Footprints Without Feet. And let's start it. The necklace. Martina is invited to a grand party. She has a beautiful dress but no jewelry. She borrows the necklace from her friend and loses it. What happens then? She was one of those pretty young ladies born as if through an error of destiny. Into a family of clerks, she had no dowry, no hopes, no means of becoming known, loved, and married by a man either rich and undistinguished. And she allowed herself to marry a pretty clerk in his office of a board of education. She was simple, but she was unhappy. She suffered intensively, feeling herself born for all dedication and luxuries. She suffered from the poverty of her apartment, the shabby walls, and the woolen chairs. All those things tortured and angered her. When she seated herself for dinner opposite to her husband, who uncovered, he screamed with a delight, saying, "Oh, the good pot pie! I know nothing better than that." She would think of elegant dinners, of shivering silver. She thought of an exquisite food served in the marvelous dishes. She had neither flocks nor jewelries, nothing, and she loved only those things. She had a rich friend, a schoolmate at the convent, who she did not like to visit. She suffered so much when she returned. She went for whole days for despair and disappointment. On the evening, her husband returned, elated, bearing in his hands and a large envelope. "Here," he said, "here is something for you." She quickly drew out and printed card on which she inscribed these words: "The Minister of Public Institution and Mittal Charles Point Jr. asks honor of Mr. and Mrs. Lotsinia Company, Monday evening, January 18 at the Minister's residence." Instead of being delighted at her husband had a hope, she threw the invitation spitefully, opened the table murmuring, "What do you suppose to want then?" "But, my dear, I thought it would make you happy. You never go out, and this is an occasion, and a fine one. Everybody wishes one, and it is very select. Not many are given to employees. Not many are given to employees. You will see the whole official world there." She looks at him with an irritated eyes and declared impatiently, "What do you want? Suppose I have where to such a thing that." He had not thought of that. He stumbled. He had not thought of that. He stammered. "Why, the dresses you wear where we go to the theatre to see is very pretty to me." He was silent, stupefied, in dismay at the sight of his wife weeping. He stumbled. "What's the matter? What's the matter?" By a violent effort, she had controlled her vaccination and responded in a calm voice, weeping her moist cheeks. "Nothing. I only have no dress, and consequently, I can't go to this affair. Give your card to your colleagues, though whose wife is better fitted out than I." She was grabbed, but answered, "Let us see, Martina. How much would a suitable costume cost? Something that would serve for other occasions. Something you simple." She refers to some seconds, thinking for the sum that she could ask for without being with a immediate refuge and fright. Exclaimed from the economical clerk. Finally, she said, in hesitating voice, "I can't tell exactly, but it seems to me that at 400 Francis thought to cover it." He turned a little pale, for he had saved just a sum to buy a gun, that he might be able to join some hunting partners next summer, with some friends who went to shoot larks on Sunday. "Nevertheless," he answered, "very well. I'll give you 400 Francis, but try to have a pretty dress." The day of the ball approached, and the Mrs. Lucen seemed sad, disturbed, anxious. No, nevertheless, her dress was nearly ready. Her husband had to hear one evening, "What's the matter with you? You have acted strangely from these 2-3 days." She responded, "I am banished not to have a jewelry. Nothing about myself with. I shall have such a poorly stricken looks. I would prefer not to go to this party." She responded, "You can wear some natural flowers in this season. They look wasted." She was not convinced. "No," she replied. "There is nothing more humiliating than you to have a shabby air in the midst of a rich lady." Then her husband cried out, "How stupid we are! Go and find our friend Mrs. Fosteria and ask her to lend you her jewelries." She uttered a cry of joy. "It's true," she said. "I had not thought of that." The next day she took herself to the friend's house and related her the story of distress. Mrs. Foster went to her closet, took out a large jewel case, brought it, opened it, and said, "Choose, my dear." She saw at first some bracelets, then a collar of pearls, then a wagon and coats of gold and jewelry of admiring workshop. She tried the jewelry before the glass, hesitated, but could neither decide to take them nor leave them. Then she asked, "Have you nothing more?" "Why, yes, look for yourself. I don't need what you will please you." Suddenly she discovered a black carton box, a supreme necklace of diamonds. Her hands tempted as she took it out. She placed it above her throat, against her dress, and was asked it. Then she asked in a hesitating voice, full of anxiety, "Could you lend me this? Only this?" "Why, yes, certainly." She fell upon the neck in her friend, embarrassed with her passion. Then went away with her treasure. The day of the ball arrived. Mrs. Lucen was great success. She was the prettiest in all. Elegant, jovial, smile, and full of joy. All the men noticed her, asked her name, and wanted to be presented. She danced with enthusiasm, intoxicated with pleased, thinking for nothing but all the admirer that victory so claimed and sweet it to her heart. She went home towards 4 o'clock in the morning. Her husband had been half asleep in one of the little cells since midnight with three other gentlemen whose wives were enjoying themselves very much. He threw around his shoulder the modest wrap they had cried, whose poverty clashed with an glance of the bald customer. She wished to hurry away in order to be noticed by the other women, who were wrapped themselves from a rich purse. Lucien returned at her wait. Said he, I'm going to call the cab. But he would not listen and decided to step rapidly. When they were on the street, they found no car courage and they began to seek for one, healing and a coachman, who they saw at a distance. They walked along towards the river, hopeless and shivering. Finally, they found one of those old car carriages that one sees in Paris after nightfall. It took them as far as their door and they went wearing up to their apartment. It was all other in her and his part. He remembered that he would have been up at the office by 10 o'clock. She removed the wrap from her shoulders before the glass for a final view of herself in the glory. Suddenly, she uttered a cry. Her necklace was not around her neck. Lucien, already half dressed, asked, "What is the matter?" She turned towards him exactly. I no longer have the Mrs. Foster's necklace. He arose in dismay. What? How is that? It is impossible. And they looked in the folds of this, in the folds of the cloth, in the pockets, everywhere. They could not find it. He asked, "You are sure you still had it with it where we left the minister's house?" "Yes. I felt as we came out, but if you have lost it in the street, we shall have heard it fall. It must be in the cab. Yes, it is possible. Did you take the number? No. And you did you notice was no. They looked at each other, uttered case down finally. Lucien dressed herself again. I'm going, he said, over the track where we went on the horse to see if I can find it. And he went. He remembered in her evening grown or not having to be forced to go to bed. Towards 7 o'clock, her husband returned. He had found nothing. He went to the police and to the cab office and put an advertisement in the newspaper offering a reward. She waited all day in the state of bewilderment. Before this fretful disaster, Lucien returned in the evening. His face paled. He had discovered nothing. He said, "Write to your friend that we have broken a clasp of the necklace and that you will have to repair. It will give us time." She wrote as he dictated. At the end of the week, they had lost all hopes. And Lucien, older by 5 years, declared, "We must replace this jewelry." In the slot of Paris Royal, they found a chiplet of diamonds, which seems to be exactly like one of those had lost. It was valued for 40,000 francs. They could get it for 36,000. Lucien possessed 18,000 francs, which his father had left him. He borrowed the rest. He made Rion's promise, took money from the usuals and the whole race lenders. Then he went to go get a new necklace, despairing of the merchant's country. 36,000 francs. When Mrs. Lawson took back the jewelry from Mrs. Foster, the letter said to her in the frigid tone, "You should have returned them to me sooner if I might have needed them." She fell upon the necklace of her friend, embarrassed with her passion, then went away with her treasure. The day of the ball arrived. Mrs. Lucien was a great success. She was the prettiest in all, and was smiling full of joy. Mrs. Foster did not open the jewelry box, as Mrs. Mine feared she would think if she pursued the substitution. What should she say? Would she take her from the robber? Mrs. Lucien now knew a horrible life is of necessity. She did her part, however, completely heroically. It was necessary to pay this dreadful limit. She would pay it. They sent away the maid. They changed their lodging. They rented some rooms in the attic. She learned the obvious work of the kitchen. She washed the dishes. She washed the soiled linen, their clothes, and discloth which she hanged out in a line to dry. She took down the refuse to the street each morning and brought up the water, stopping at each landing to catch her breath. Her clothed like a woman of the people. She went to the grocer, the butcher, and the flutons with her basket and her arms, shopping, hanging to her last zone of her miserable money. Her husband worked evening, putting his bags and cloth like a woman at the people. She went to a grocer, a butcher, and a fluterist with her basket and her arm, shopping, hanging in the last zone of her miserable money. The husband worked evening, putting his books of some merchants in order at night. He often did copying of 5 sort of a page, and this life listed for 10 years. At the end of the 10 years, they had restored all. Mrs. Lucien seemed old now. She had become a strong, hard woman and a cruel woman for a poor household. Her hair badly dressed, her skin's awry, her hands red. She spoke in a loud tone and washed the floor with large pails of water. But sometime when her husband was at office, she would set herself before the window and think of that evening party of former times, of that balls where she was so beautiful and so flattered. How would it have been and she had lost the necklace? Who knows how singular is life and how full of changes. How see a thing will ruin or save one. On Sunday, as she was taking a walk and capsule it to ride herself for the cares of week, she suddenly perceived a woman walking with a child. It was Marian Foster, still young, still pretty, still attractive. Mrs. Lucien was affected. Should we speak to her? Yes, certainly. And now that she had paid, she was tell her all. Why not? She approached her. Good morning, Jenna. Her friend did not recognize her and was astonished to see a familiar dress by this common personage. She stamped, "But, Mandama, I do not know. You must be mistaken. No, I am Madam Mandela Lawson." Her friend uttered a cry of astonishment. "Oh, my poor Mandela, how you have changed!" So many confusion have been arrived. So I want to tell the lady which is looking dangerous is Mrs. Martinda Lawson, Matilda Martinda Lucilla, and she was a beautiful and pretty lady. And this is the lady who had lent the necklace to her, and her name is Mrs. Foster. The pronunciation is Mrs. In French we have MME means MISS, which is Mrs. Pronounced Indian, which is British tone. Now Mrs. Foster. She was looking young at the olden times, and now working hard for pay the money which she had to lend to Mr. Potter. So she had worked hard day and night. Now she had become like this, but she was like this. Yeah, this is the lady which you have seen here. So guys, this was the confusion which has been clear. There are total 3 characters in the story. One is Mr. Martin Luston, and Mr. Martin, then his wife, his husband, Mr. Foster, who lended the necklace. Her child is also there in this park, but the name is not mentioned, so no need to learn that. There are the people. Now let's start reading. Yes, I have had some hard days since I saw you, and some miserable ones, and all because of you. Because of me? How is that? You recall the diamond necklace that you have loaned me to wear to the minister's ball? Very well. I lose it. How is that? Since you returned it to me, I return nothing to you exactly like it, and it had been taken 10 years to pay it for me. You have to understand that it was not easy for us who had nothing, but it is finished, and I am deeply concerned. Mrs. Foster stopped short. She said, you brought a diamond necklace to replace mine. Yes, you did not pursue it then. They were just alike." And she smiled with profound and simple joy. Mrs. Foster was touched and looked both her hands as she replaced. "Oh, my poor Martinda, mine were false. They were not worth over 500 francs." Here is the end of the lesson. So bye bye. Please do subscribe my channel.